Jonathan Gullis, MP for Stoke-on-Trent North. Jonathan, a very good afternoon to you.
Hey, good to see you, Mike. I'm still recovering from the gratitude poncho. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, right?
It really is. I mean, it's astonishing. It's any wonder, you know, that these priorities of the NHS are all bleeding wrong, you know. But I mean, I suppose we've got to talk about the NatWest situation. Hard to believe that a banking organisation which is internationally renowned and supposedly knows what it's doing could make this many mistakes in such a short period of time, isn't it?
I mean, I'm flabbergasted, to be perfectly honest with you, Mike, about how serious the breach has been here, and the fact that we had the CEO basically confess to having privately given away the details of Nigel Farage's bank account, which then turned out to also be a complete lie, is just truly shocking. And I'm someone who's been a NatWest customer my entire life, from when I was a teenager. I opened up my first bank account, and I called for Dame Alison to have to go because I lost confidence in her. I also think the board, quite frankly, needs to also go, having been willing to prop her up potentially after obviously realising that it was just too untenable within 4 hours for them trying to pretend that they could get through this. It's just absolutely shocking and abhorrent, and it actually just goes to show that when people complain that there are institutions, the establishment, people like you and I, who say these things, Mike, and we get derided on Twitter for, you know, pushing some sort of culture war, but actually what we have here is proof that the elite establishments are literally trying to censor or trying to silence or trying to ostracise people who don't hold the views that they deem, because they think there's some sort of morality police, the views that they deem to be socially acceptable to Twitter, without realising that Twitter is not representative of our United Kingdom.
No, exactly right. And even more shocking than the decision last night by NatWest to keep her, because that, as I say, was the sort of final ignominy for me, for her to admit to something which could technically actually be a breach of the law, never mind a breach of confidentiality. She might have broken all sorts of data protection laws, she might have broken some other European law, apparently. But even more shocking was that she's apparently been an advisor in Downing Street on the Net Zero Climate Change Committee, and also as some other kind of committee sitting in with Rishi Sunak. So what we now learn is that these places of sort of, you know, the lefty establishment, as I would call them, which I didn't think was going to include banks, have got their fingers into all sorts of pies and are helping governments to make decisions.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that the Prime Minister has removed Dame Alison from his board, and I think the Grant Shapps has also confirmed that she's no longer there either, which is good news, because it would be totally wrong for her to now maintain a place and trying to advise the government, particularly when, like you say, she would be privy to some very private conversations regarding strategy going forward to achieve net zero, hopefully, as you and I would say, Mike, at the very least done in a sensible time frame where this technology is actually reliable, actually delivers what we want, and more importantly, the infrastructure is actually ready to cope with the sudden change to what we want to see. And, you know, I'm someone who's advocating for us to actually push back to at least what is happening in the European Union and America for the 2035 deadline on internal combustion engines. And I do hope the government will also make a big move to actually, by the way, approve hydrogen combustion and make those net zero energy contributors, because obviously that's happened in the European Union. I'm blessed in Staffordshire to be, as a Staffordshire MP, to be home to JCB, where they actually have got hydrogen combustion engines in their diggers, in their tractors on sites right now. So that would be a big boost for UK productivity and for UK manufacturing, most importantly. But yeah, you are right. The establishment here is just, I mean, to read the stuff, because Nigel is a Brexiteer, because Nigel is friends with Novak Djokovic. I mean, what on earth is going on? Who does it matter to a bank who you're friends with? At the end of the day, as long as you meet all the requirements, you legally, obviously, are putting money into your account, and you're legally doing everything within the law set out as a customer, then the bank should too follow the law as well. What on earth do they think they're doing?
Exactly right. But also we've now been told by other banking groups, including Barclays and HSBC and Lloyds, that they will, if somebody complains about you, check out what your social media profile is and the sorts of things you might say on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. And I just think that that is way beyond any remit that any bank should ever have.
No company, no bank has a right to determine what you, I, or anyone else says on our Facebook is worthy of us having a bank account. That any bank thinking that they do, then quite simply, we should be considering whether they're allowed to even trade in this country, because we are protectors of free speech. We believe in democracy. This is the kind of nutty stuff that you see in China or Russia or other despot countries with dictatorships. This is not the type of thing I expect in a democratic, free society as we have in the United Kingdom. And I think it's completely abhorrent that a bank are determined because they don't like your views on certain issues. And like you say, Mike, I'm sure you and I are probably in the firing line at some stage here for having views, which doesn't please Twitter, but actually...
Yeah, listen, I mean, I'm like you.
Places like Stoke-on-Trent.
Every day when I go into my bank account, I expect to be blocked from getting into it, because I just figure, how come they haven't got round to me yet? But apparently an awful lot of MPs who I would consider to be moderate MPs have had these problems, and their families have had problems because they're MPs.
Well, exactly, and I think what's really been shocking, some of the stories where grandchildren of Nigel Lawson have even been having issues. I mean, what on earth is going on here? And what I was really disappointed about today, to be honest with you, Mike, was Nick Thomas-Symonds, the Labour Shadow Minister, going on the media round earlier this morning, was on the side of the banks, was on the side of Dame Alison, was saying that she was somehow, a victim of some sort of campaign by the Prime Minister, the Chancellor and Conservative members of Parliament. So instead of siding with the actual facts based in reality and the fact that Dame Alison herself had accepted her culpability in the behaviour, they were siding. And it's taken now Keir Starmer 2 hours later to perform another Labour flip-flop to come out and say now he does side with obviously the fact that Dame Alison should have resigned and that he feels sorry for Nigel Farage. I mean, it's just embarrassing for the Labour Party, a day when all politicians from across the political divide should be united and call this stuff up, because believe me, if it can happen to Nigel Farage, it can happen to anyone in the Labour Party as well.
Well, this is it. And I mean, it's the first time Keir Starmer said anything about it. It's taken him 3 weeks to utter anything at all. And it's all a bit sort of mealy-mouthed.